Lubbock High had its own ideas this weekend for James Wharton's homecoming to Lubbock, and the Westerners keep to their promise. Hello everyone and welcome to Football Fever here on LIS TV. I'm Travis Cram, and to my left is the Prince of Pigskin, George Watson of the Lubbock Avalanche-Journal. And here, an exciting weekend this weekend, George, at Lubbock High, they get the big win over Midland Lee.
Prince of Pigskin. I'm
Pigskin.
going to end up with more nicknames than Apollo Creed by the time this season's over, I guarantee you. But, yeah, you're right. A big weekend for Lubbock High, a big weekend for the program, for the school. Jason Wilkes told me on Thursday, the school needed a morale boost, not just the team, but the morale. Everybody needed to kind of be lifted up, and boy, did they get lifted in a big time, a big win. Obviously, I think the biggest win in the Mike Speck era and biggest win in a long, long time at Lubbock High over Midland Lee. Just an outstanding job by Lubbock High in that game.
Yeah, obviously Nathan Slaughter had the biggest game out of them all. 14 catches, 235 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Obviously, he's someone we're going to keep watching out for. We knew about him a little bit over the summer from last year. Switching on now to the rest of the 2-5A games. Odessa taking on Coronado. Coronado trying to rebound from a tough loss again last week, but Odessa a little too much for the Mustangs.
Yeah, the wrong time. If you're Coronado, it was the wrong time for Odessa to get that offense cranking up, and they did big time. Derek Teagarden was very efficient throwing the football, and you got the 2 Marquez kids out there. Coronado did a good job on Odessa's leading receiver going into the game, Tyler McQueen. But they just couldn't contain the Marquez kids or hardly anybody else out there, and Odessa just had too much for Coronado. I think Coronado's got to take a step back a little bit, maybe go back to the drawing board and look at some things because their offense is really struggling right now. Their defense didn't play that bad against Odessa. Odessa hit some big plays, and that was the deal. Odessa all last year just big played teams to death, and they finally got that going this last week against Coronado. So I think defensively Coronado's probably okay, but they've really got a lot of questions they got to answer offensively over there at Coronado.
And another Lubbock team, Monterey, taking on Odessa Permian and trying to do the same thing as Coronado, trying to bounce back from a tough loss to Tascosa a week ago. But obviously, this is something that this defense is going to figure out how to try to stop some of these teams because Permian had it rolling that night.
Yeah, Permian, like Odessa, had it rolling. Got their offense going. Permian had kind of struggled the last couple of weeks. The first couple of weeks coming out of the gates, against Central and against Duncanville, but they got a lead up on Monterey, and right now we've talked about it before. Monterey's offense right now just hasn't been able to hit on all cylinders to where they can get into a scoring fest and kind of come from behind. They have shown some signs. They put up some good yards this week, both rushing and throwing the football. So maybe they're kind of finding the balance a little bit, but they just got too far behind too quickly, and Permian was just too much for them this week.
What's it going to take for Monterey? Because obviously this is 2 straight games where they've tried to keep it close going into the third quarter, and then Permian and Tascosa just eventually pulled away. What's it going to take for Teague and that offense to get going?
Well, it may be a combination of things. I think they're probably still learning a little bit out of it. It may be a personnel issue. Maybe they have to look at some things personnel-wise, maybe up front, maybe running the ball. The thing is, though, they've got to find some balance. Sam Teague's got to be able to throw the football. They've got to be able to throw the football, when and not have to bring in another quarterback to do it. Not that I'm saying, that Tyler Pearson, Troy Nicholson can't run that offense, but they don't run the ball as good as Sam Teague. So, they're really kind of at a conundrum there, a little bit, with their quarterback. They've got a good runner who's not such a good passer right now. They've got a couple of good passers who are not such a good runner. They need to find somebody that can do both adequately to be able to give that offense some balance so defenses can't cheat one way or the other.
All right, taking a look at the rest of the scores from District 2-5A. Tascosa gets another win, 24-21 over Amarillo. They're at the top of those standings with Odessa and Permian right now, and then Midland rolls 53-30 over San Angelo Central. Switching on now to District 1-3A, Midland Greenwood taking on Estacado. Estacado trying to do the same thing and bounce back from a loss as well. Or actually, they won last week.
They won last week.
So going 1-1 into this game, but tough loss. Greenwood a little too much for them.
Yeah, a little surprising. Estacado I thought had done a good job, defensively playing the run and holding teams down. But Danny Cervantes talked about it last week. Greenwood's going to sit there in the wishbone in Steve Taylor's offense. Kind of like his brother over at Idalou. He's going to sit there and run the football, and they did, racked up over a couple hundred yards rushing against Estacado. So I was surprised at the score. And Deverick Stubblefield had a couple of interceptions that obviously thwarted some of their offensive drives. So I look for them to come back, and unfortunately they've got a tough opponent to come back against. They've got Snyder coming up this week. So I think Estacado's got a little bit of work to do. I don't think they're in trouble by any means. I think they're still going to be right there in the district race, for a championship at the end of the season. But but they've got a little work, coming off that loss to Greenwood.
Obviously, you mentioned the interceptions. Of course, 207 rushing yards for Greenwood in that one. Muleshoe taking on Cooper now over here in Lubbock, and we saw this game last year. It was a bit of a blowout by the Mules, but they tried to keep it kind of close in this one. Obviously tough not having Tay Richardson in the game for Cooper, but Muleshoe pulls away again.
Yeah, talking with Coach Wyndham yesterday over there at Cooper, some of their scores have kind of surprised me, but honestly, to only lose 27-7, considering some of the injuries they've had to go through this year, is I think is a outstanding job to not let Muleshoe get away from it. I mean, you're talking about 2 or 3 linebackers are out, like you said, Tay Richardson is out. They've just been decimated by injuries, especially defensively. So for defensively to be able to hold Muleshoe to 27 points, I think was a positive sign. Now they just got to get healthy. They got to get Richardson back. There's a chance he might play this week, but that ankle, he rolled an ankle. It's still kind of bothering him, so he's still questionable. They just got to find and he's a big offensive weapon for them. So if they get him back, they'll probably be a little bit better. But they're gonna they're looking for to get on the roll the next couple weeks. Should be interesting to see how healthy they can be going into district play.
Yeah, and obviously we knew about Friendship and the way they started off this season, but you said it last week. Wiley was going to be a tough one. The Bulldogs are a top 5 team for a reason. They showed it. They almost shut out Friendship in this one.
Yeah, they did. It was like the last 8 seconds before Friendship got a touchdown in this one, and there were the conditions were bad. It was raining, and I'm not sure what kind of condition the field was over at Abilene Wiley. But that's no excuse. Both teams have got to play in it as well, and Abilene Wiley found a way with its running game to be able to come out with the win. Friendship's offense just didn't click. They didn't have much of a passing game, so their balance was really kind of thrown off, and Abilene Wiley was really kind of able to set on the run there. And of course, obviously, you don't know how they were mentally going into the game, defensively especially. In case you didn't hear, Don Black, their outstanding defensive coordinator, longtime coach over there, had heart bypass surgery on Friday morning at 10:30, and the kids just found out right before they got on the bus. So I'm sure that might have had a little bit of an effect, with their mental state and having to go on the road without him. But they've got a couple of good chances to bounce back these next couple of weeks. They've got Randall coming up, and Randall has had some struggles. And then they've got a Hobbs team over in New Mexico that they've had some good success with. So I don't think Friendship is in trouble by any means. I think this is just a hiccup. I think they'll be all right, coming down the road.
All right, obviously we hope Coach Black for a speedy recovery and that he's good health going back into this next week. And hopefully he can get back to the sidelines for the Tigers on defense. Other scores to note about: Littlefield 48, Brownfield 0. Patrick Barrio, a huge game in that one for 156 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then New Deal 28-12 over Nazareth. Larry Dennis with 182 yards and 2 scores in that one. New Deal, maybe a team we need to watch out for the rest of the season.
I think so. New Deal, it looks like they've got things cranking once again. They're playing outstanding defense. They've got a great running game. We know Coach Mayo out there is really, they just kind of restock the talent pool every year, no matter what they lose or what they have coming back. They just kind of restock it every year. And then going back to that Littlefield-Brownfield game, I think it's good to see Patrick Barrio finally getting into a groove a little bit. He'd been bothered with a leg injury for the first couple of weeks, and they'd really kind of been holding off on him and not letting him, turn him full force. But against Brownfield, he was able to go, with over 150 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. And looks like Littlefield's running game, now that they've got him going with their newfound passing game that we've talked about with Tracy Huseman over there and their balance, they look like they could really be a force down the road over there at Littlefield.
All right, when we come back, George is going to visit with our AJ Player of the Week right here on The Fever.